audience. If you raise your hand and I don't get to you, I apologize. We're trying to get to as many people as possible. Please be respectful of all of your neighbors' time. Whenever you're doing this, if you have a question, please ask that question and let the Congresswoman respond. It'll start off, we'll have an introduction, the Congresswoman will do some remarks, and then we'll take questions. I'll be walking around with a microphone. Again, I will see all the hands. If I don't get to you, please put those questions to us. We're going to try to stick to about an hour to be respectful of Olympic College and their space. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for your patience with doing this second round of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm Kitsap County Commissioner Katie Walters. This is my district. I have the great pleasure of introducing Congresswoman Emily Randall today. And I want to share a little bit. One of the first times I spent time with Emily was when we were campaigning together a couple of years ago. And we were on a policy bike ride through Gorst. I don't recommend it. And we, in fact, we ended up stopping traffic and getting pulled over. So we're like, okay, who's highest ranking? Oh, Senator. And she actually got us out of a ticket, so she's a good friend then. But just as an example of her care for the community, to be really hands-on and seeing what's out there, and really the opportunity for us to see our community and what opportunities and challenges that we can work together on. And so I really love that she's now a partner for all of us in Congress. And she really understands our community because she grew up here. So we have our own hometown girl, right? She grew up in Kitsap County. She was in Bremerton. So to us, I mean, it's such a treat, or I don't know, I guess I must say, more comforting to me in the chaos of what's happening right now at the federal level to know that we have our own hometown girl out there fighting for us. So I don't want to get in the way of you asking the questions that you want, so please join me now in welcoming our champion and neighbor, Emily Randall.
That we are in this fight with you, and I know I can't do it without you, and I'm grateful that you're showing up, that you're holding your electeds accountable, that you are engaged in protecting our democracy, because it takes all of us. And I want to especially thank some of our very young town hall attendees. If you have a question, we will be sure to get to you. You know what? This isn't how I imagined my first term in Congress. Though I did know that there was a real strong possibility of a Trump presidency when I decided to run. And that was one of the reasons for me that I raised my hand and offered my experience and my service to our community, because so much is at risk. And it was the 2016 election that inspired me to get involved in public office in the first place. When I was working at Planned Parenthood and I knew that our abortion rights were on the line, I knew that healthcare as we know it was under attack, that education, that all of the things that allowed us to live strong lives and futures were at risk. And over the last 6 years, we have done really hard and important work in this Washington to pass protections for our neighbors, to expand health care, to strengthen voting rights, to pass real LGBTQ protections, to expand child care subsidies and child care facilities, to work on affordable housing, all of this work, and also to defend against the actions of the first Trump presidency. And here we are, in this very scary, uncertain time. And I want to reflect back to you that I share your fear, your anger, your uncertainty, your sense of urgency. I know that it can feel really lonely sometimes when we're scrolling, the news alerts at home, when we don't see our elected officials, when you don't see me yelling and acting as if the house is on fire when we know it is. And I don't know, I think growing up in a family where I had a Democrat and a Republican parent, where representing a district where we were pretty 50-50 in the state Senate for 6 years, talking to neighbors who believe all different solutions to the problems that we face, but who mostly agree on the facts of the problem, has made me feel like there are a lot of problems that we can solve when we work together and we listen to people and we are respectful and loving towards our community. And that means that sometimes the way I show up is not always yelling. I don't know if any of you are married in this crowd. But if you're in a disagreement with your spouse or with a friend or a coworker, and you yell about what you think is right, how often does it change the other person's mind? So that's, I know that I'm not married to my colleagues in the Republican conference, but I just want to say out loud that sometimes our urgency, our anger, our fear looks different, and sometimes the path we take and the balancing between pragmatism and outrage looks different for each of us. And but I do want to be here to listen to what's on your heart and to make you know that you are not alone as we face this danger together. I'm going to stop talking though because I want to answer as many questions as we can. We have about 15 more minutes in this space. Olympic College has been really flexible with us, and I'm grateful for all of your time and flexibility too. So James has a microphone and is gonna make their way around to try and get to as many hands, and in between live people, I'll try to get to some of these different questions too. So first question.
Hello, I'm Michael Stuber from Port Ludlow. How do we feel about not voting for the debt limit and making the Republicans own their own governance?
So I think living in a military town, we take government shutdowns really seriously. I'm just going to caveat with that. I remember when my dad, who worked at PSNS, was furloughed in the 90s. And our caucus is really united around drawing a red line on Medicaid cuts especially. We were united in voting against the budget resolution that proposed $880 billion of cuts to Medicaid. That's ending the program as we know it. A program that ensures 1 in 5 Americans, half of the births in the country, disabled kids like my sister, and seniors who are aging in long-term care. The Leader Jeffries sent a letter yesterday morning that reaffirmed that commitment. Our budget leads, Rosa DeLauro from Appropriations, have been at the table with the Republican budget leads in the House and the Senate, and Patty Murray is the Democratic budget lead in the Senate. They've been at the table for months saying these are the lines that we have. These are the safeguards we need in order to give you any votes to keep the government open. And we have been negotiating in good faith, and the continuing resolution was just proposed today, so I haven't read the whole thing. They're calling it a clean continuing resolution, a clean CR, but it's 90 pages and omits a lot of programs, so I don't believe them. And we are willing to withhold our votes from a continuing resolution that does real damage to our communities and let them be the people that shut the government down.
Thank you for holding this second session. I appreciate you coming out to attend to our needs. I'm a veteran. I served my country as I'm retired military. I'm also retired GSA. We're twin sisters. Everybody in our family has served with the exception of two people. Randall, Representative Randall, I would like to know how you're going to protect us veterans. I recently went to a VA medical appointment, actually didn't get to go to it. The appointment was canceled with no notification. I waited for 2.5 hours. This is the first time that my medical care and millions of other veterans are being affected by these draconian laws and this downsizing of our government. Our veterans, 40% of them serve in the federal government. Most of us go back to the federal government to serve our country again and again and again. I'm going to fall through the cracks because there is no care for my special needs. What can you do to assure this veterans and the millions around the country what the Democrats and the government is going to do to help protect us and help us to maintain the quality of medical?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your service. You know, I serve on the Oversight Committee, the Government Reform and Oversight Committee in Congress, and theoretically that's the committee where we have oversight authority over federal agencies, over this administration, over the relationship between Congress and local governments too. And that committee has been a spectacle. You know, the Republicans are using their platform as the majority party to demonize federal workers who have remote work agreements, to accuse people of not deserving jobs, to spout lies about people like you who have served our country over and over again. And, you know, my family also is full of folks who served as active duty and then came back to work for Naval Base Kitsap, for PSNS. What the playbook that this administration and Elon Musk are unrolling is cutting funding and staff from agencies that they know they don't have the authority to shut down, but they can make inefficient operationally. When they lay off masses of people, what it means is that it's harder for you to get care. And their hope is that they will sow so much distrust in these programs that it will be easy for them to privatize them, to dismantle our government from the inside. And that is what we have to fight back against.
Yes.
We have to ensure that we are telling the story of what is actually happening. And we do that in committee, and we do that in using social media, in the news media. We do that by telling our stories as members of Congress. What I try to do is bring the stories of real people with me. I've read emails from veterans and public servants in committee during my 5 minutes that are allotted to me. And we need you all to keep doing this work too. To write op-eds, to talk to folks in your circles that maybe you don't talk politics with, to whether it's your book club, whether it's your sister-in-law that you know voted for Trump, whether it is, whoever it is in your community that doesn't share your sense of urgency. And then to think about people who live in other districts where their elected member of Congress doesn't share the urgency. And call those people and ask them to call their member of Congress and put that pressure on. It's like an old-fashioned phone tree, and that is one of the organizing tools that we use to ensure that we are putting pressure on and that we peel off some of the votes that we need to save our government as we know it. We only need 3, but that's a really difficult position for 3 people to be in. Tuesday before last, when the budget resolution was introduced, there were 3 bills that were meant to be on the floor, and the budget resolution was supposed to be the second, and they skipped it because they didn't have the votes. And then they dismissed us all after we voted on the 3rd thing, and people left the Capitol campus, and then something changed. Some calls had been made, and all of a sudden the votes were there. And I don't know what kind of pressure, President Trump and Elon Musk and the party leadership put on their members, but I know that the pressure is there. And so we have to make sure that real people are calling their offices to put pressure on too, to counteract whatever the threats are, to ensure that folks know that it is popular to stand up for Medicaid. It is popular to stand up for Veterans Affairs. It is popular to protect the services that keep our country alive and that ensure that people can live full lives. So we have a lot of questions to get to, and James is over here. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Congressman, thank you so much for representing us. And I was here the first hour, I walked back in. It's clear that your knowledge of civics is very robust, but I think we're using applause as a barometer. The thing that got the most reaction in the first session was when people were asking, what are you going to do? And I recognize there are things that we need to be doing, but it seems like the solutions that you seem to be offering are made for a different time. We live in a Donald Trump presidency. Your colleagues, the president is taking legal actions and saying, you know what, money that has been apportioned by Congress is not going out. Federal workers that legally cannot be cut and fired the way they're being fired are being let go. It's like we're in a unequal position. We are a minority in the House, a minority in the Senate, a minority in the judiciary, and a minority, obviously, in the presidency and the executive. It seems like the only thing that we should be talking about now are what actions outside of the norms, because norms are going to help us.
Yes.
Like, if we vote on party lines, we're going to lose 10 of the 10 times. What actions, what suits are you going to start bringing against the elements of the executive that are siding with the president, and anything else that you plan to be doing outside of business as usual?
Thank you. Thank you. We spoke at the town hall yesterday, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it in the first session, but the judiciary is one of the co-equal branches of government, right? Like the framers outlined democracy that includes the executive, includes the legislative branch that has the power to pass laws and pass a budget, and then includes the judicial branch. And those 3 branches of government are co-equal, and I just want to say that because a lot of my colleagues purport in committee to work for the president, and that is not their constitutional duty. In the state legislature, I had the opportunity, I guess, to join my colleagues in suing our governor a couple of times, because not that I didn't disagree with his policies, but that he line item vetoed a policy in which he was not allowed to do that. That's outside of his constitutional power. In Congress, the precedent says, and there are some arguments about this that we are exploring, that any lawsuit by Congress has to be brought by the Speaker of the House. And so the minority leader does not have the authority to initiate a suit against the executive branch. There are some legal theories that we are exploring in which folks whose individual votes have been disregarded, who voted with the prevailing side, with the majority to pass something, whose individual votes. So I would not have the standing to join any of those lawsuits as someone who hasn't voted on a budget that has passed. But there are those conversations happening with legal teams. There also are 78, well, and more now probably, but last I checked, there were 78 lawsuits against the Trump administration's executive orders and dangerous actions. The first positive ruling that we had was here in Washington State when Attorney General Nick Brown prevailed on a citizenship case. We've seen a victory over gender affirming care. We've seen victories across the country. And we know they're going to continue to appeal. But because we don't have the authority or standing for most of those cases, we are working in partnership with organizations that do, with labor unions. I was with the Equality Caucus, met with the ACLU and HRC recently. We are definitely exploring the legal tools that we have to push and to ensure that the checks and balances that exist in our Constitution remain.
Hi, I'm an educator. I'm wondering what can be done to protect public education for our students, and specifically what can be done to protect IDEA?
So I thought one of the things that I would be fighting for when I got to Congress was for the 40% of IDEA funding that the federal government had set a goal to meet, instead of the 18% of funding that is like kind of the top that we ever get at the state. The state is picking up a lot of the funding for special education that it is legally obligated to, and it's nowhere near enough. What we are fighting instead is the dissolution of the Department of Education. We are fighting not for more funding, we are fighting to protect the funding that exists for states like Washington. We have, members of Congress have showed up at every federal agency that DOJ and Elon Musk have been given access to demand entry, to demand answers. And we have been denied entrance every time.
How?
Okay, I'm not going to take on armed guards. I'm not. I appreciate that you want me to, but I'm not. The federal agencies, we have oversight authority, but they are in the executive branch. Federal agencies are in the executive branch. And Capitol Police and the U.S. Marshal Service are in the executive branch. And so they don't answer to Congress. When we are denied entrance, we have had rallies and press conferences and continue to shine a light on the fact that we are denied entrance. We have introduced legislation to go further and protect taxpayer information. We have introduced motions to subpoena Musk before the Oversight Committee. And the Republican leadership of the committee, because they have the votes to move to table the motion and quash the subpoena, they do. They move to table and then they hold the vote open until all the Republicans who weren't sitting in their seats in committee and who are elsewhere around the Capitol get back into committee to vote to quash the subpoena. So that I also hear that it doesn't feel like enough, that these things don't feel like enough. And these are the tools that we have and that we are using. So the outside of the box tools right now are new legal theories that we're exploring, and they're using our collective voices. Because never in the history of our country, and in most governments across the world, has the government saved the people from the government. Fighting back against authoritarianism and fascism and attacks on our democracy as we know it takes all of us.
I'm an active duty military spouse. Right now, if you look at the numbers, a significant amount of service members qualify for WIC and SNAP. As well as within the last 2 months we moved, service members are now having to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket due to the federal cuts. Elon Musk has hundreds of billions of dollars worth of contracts within the military. There was actually a Republican congressman recently who had a hearing about how the Air Force is paying $90,000 for a $100 bag of bushings. This is well known in the military community that private contracts are paid for that way. They are overpaid. Why is nobody looking into the DoD contract as the biggest part of our budget? Why are you guys not looking into that budget to take money from? Not from the service members, because we aren't paying anything. I'm an officer spouse and we qualified for WIC in 2020. We are paid more, and we qualified for WIC with 3 children in 2020. Okay? There's food banks. Every single duty station has a food bank run by the chaplain that is used and emptied. What are you doing to move the money that the big DoD is given? We just were given more to either the service members or back to something, education, something that is useful.
Thank you. Thank you for your question and for your family's service. So, the year that I was trying to get this job, I spent a lot of time with Drew McEwen. And one of the things that we really strongly agreed on is the fact that folks who are inside the agencies, including defense, who are doing the work, know where the efficiencies are, just like you said. Folks who are working for the government know where we could save money. In the state legislature, we passed a bill that allows for some nominal bonuses to go to employees who speak out about efficiencies and find solutions to save taxpayer dollars. That is how we should be approaching waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. We should be listening to the staff who understand where we could make things work better. But instead, folks who are speaking out are getting targeted as being too political, and Elon Musk and Doge are taking a sledgehammer to programs where they should be taking a scalpel. The continuing resolution that the Republicans released today, I haven't had a chance to read all 90 pages of it yet, but our staff is reviewing and we're digging in to understand. They say it's a clean continuing resolution, that it's just business as usual, but we know there are cuts and eliminations of programs, and we know that there is more money for DoD. And what our caucus's red line is protections for Medicaid. And this continuing resolution doesn't seem to be doing that. Yes, we need to ensure that wages keep up with the cost of living, that folks who are serving our country do not have to be receiving subsidies for food from the state and the federal government. We need folks to be able to support their families while they protect our country. You deserve that from us. And Congressman Plumer, when he was in office, really worked to shine a light on wages for the Department of Defense here, for Naval-Based Kids Act. I want to continue that work, but right now we are not fighting for a reasonable budget. We are fighting against an axe being taken to agencies as we know it. So we will keep looking for ways that we can move the needle. I was out on we had a briefing, a full day briefing in Bangor a few weeks ago, and we met with union representatives too. I'd like to bring Mike Baumgartner, who's a fellow freshman who represents Spokane. We didn't serve together in the state senate, but we just barely did overlap. I'd like to bring him to Naval-Based Kids Act to meet folks who work there, to understand how we are impacted by some of these, the votes that he takes the same way that his constituents who work at the Air Force Base in Spokane are impacted. But right now, it's a really difficult time to resist fascism and work on bipartisanship. Those two things are challenging, and I'm trying to do both as much as possible. Yeah.
We can't hear back here.
Thank you.
I have more like of a statement and like a challenge for you and other people in Congress. I am a disabled veteran, and on my off time, I help other veterans get into the system. I help them get compensation, register for care. I help with all of that because there are a lot of veterans out here that do not have that assistance. And I want to challenge you and other congressmen, go walk the halls of the VA hospital. I want you to stand our Asian veterans and escort them to their appointments. Don't go as a congresswoman or a state senator or, your representative. I want you to go as a patient to understand where the VA has come from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, up until now. Every time that we get new progress done for the vets, it seems like it wants to be dismantled. I have 2 daughters. My youngest daughter is 13 years old, and she wants to fly pilot. She wants to be a pilot for the Air Force. This cannot be the country that I served, that I put my life on the line for, that I fought for your kids, your future kids, your kids. Not you, but the way they're targeting the VA. And I want you to tell Doug Collins, the Department of Veteran Affairs Secretary, I said out of my own mouth, he is a coward, he is a liar, and he is a fraud.
So I hear you that we need to show up more, that we need to walk us alongside people and walk the walk with them. I can't show up someplace and not be a congresswoman because that just comes with me everywhere. But James and I spent a number of hours at Randall on Valentine's Day, and it's the 6th time I've been there in the last many years, and we'll keep going back. And I speak with the folks who are providing care, and I sit and I speak with veterans there. And I'll say, I really appreciate you, the work, the service that you are doing, not just as active duty, but as the work that you've done to connect your fellow veterans with care. I also want to offer our office as a resource. We do casework. We have 2 casework staff, and we're hiring a 3rd. And one of the things that we can keep doing, no matter what this administration does, is to continue providing casework support. So if you have a challenge with a federal agency, whether it's the VA, Social Security, any number of agencies, there's a form on our website at randall.house.gov. We have forms, privacy release forms that you have to sign in order to do casework. here, you can call us at the number on our website and we will help. The federal agencies typically take 30 days to respond to casework requests. It's taking longer now because they are laying the people off at federal agencies who respond to our requests. And Congressman Kilmer's office wasn't taking new casework as he was transitioning out, so. If you haven't been in touch with our office, okay.
You have a form that you want numbers on, and I don't have those numbers because I haven't gotten an appointment to make an appointment, and there is no number to fill out on your form.
Ma'am, if you could stay back after this and speak to one of us, we can figure out a way to help you out, okay? Congressman, if you can list your questions from the cards there, please.
Let's see, we've done this one. How can we, the people, stop executive action execution of our institutions and agencies? And I appreciate that phrasing because it is, and I'll say this again, and I'll keep saying it again, it is going to take all of us. There are things that I can't say wearing my member of Congress hat, paying for this room rental with taxpayer dollars with my official staff here. But I can say that I've heard that there is a day of action on April 5th that you can Google. And, did you say March 14th?
14 March, the veterans will be marching at every capital. 14 March.
So that's one of my suggestions. We can't share on our official social media, events by certain kind of organizations. There are laws that I'm not willing to break. But I would encourage you to look for ways that you can show up and keep showing up. And invite your friends to come with you, friends who aren't usually political. Like, look for those ways to stay visible, to stay loud, to be in the streets, to be in the, bring op-eds to the newspaper, to tell your stories, and to keep the pressure on. And look for ways to connect with folks who are in districts where their members aren't loud. Okay, one over here.
Thank you for being here, Representative Randall. I'm an LGBTQ plus kid, and I'm worried about the things Trump is doing. Rules about whether I can play sports or get health care aid. I would like to know what you are doing to disrupt these things and what we can do.
Thank you. Thanks for using your voice and asking a question and being here and being visible. I know it's not safe for all of our friends and neighbors to be, loudly out, to be unapologetically ourselves. And it really matters that we are so that we can make the space safer for them too. We saw the first bill that the Republicans brought to the floor of this Congress was a bill attacking LGBTQ folks. And we've seen them introduce rules to keep my colleague Sarah McBride from being able to go to the bathroom in the building, and to keep folks who are coming to lobby and use their voices from being welcome. They're trying to erase us. And one of the things that we did that is, I don't know, feels so small in the grand scheme of things, was every member of Congress's office has a bathroom, and many members are like, oh, this is only for me. And we put a sign on our door that said, anybody who needs to use our bathroom while they're in the building and on campus can use our bathroom. And I made my first speech on the House floor to fight back against their targeting of kids who are just trying to play sports. And I am proud that one of the legal decisions that we have seen going our way was when our Attorney General, Nick Brown, sued the Trump administration to ensure that our hospitals can continue complying with Washington state law. The fight's not over. We have so many more battles to fight, and I'm just so grateful to be in it with you, and to be in it with this crowd full of our neighbors, to ensure that we are doing everything we can to protect each other, to make our future safer for all of us. Even if we individually are not impacted by these executive orders, we all know someone who is. We all have neighbors who are hit even harder. And it's our job to look for ways that we can keep our neighbors safe. So thanks for being in this place.
I work with the federal government, and this past Friday, I had a colleague ask me, talk to me about how they were worried that they were going to be fired because despite being a brilliant engineer, they are a woman. And they're afraid they're going to be construed as a DEI hire. What can I say about that?
When we see that the commander of the Coast Guard fired for being a DEI hire, now the Republicans are going after Amy Coney Barrett for being a DEI hire. Yeah. Federal grants are being frozen because they say say in the experiment that they study female flies that you need to use a diversity of samples in your grant. Yeah, it's like Control F McCarthyism. They are searching for us and trying to eradicate us. Indeed. I think one of the things that we can do as humans is to, show up and show your colleagues support and solidarity. To ensure that they're connected with their union reps, because some of the lawsuits, unions are taking the lead on. Though we found like some of the decisions have been that the union itself doesn't have standing, so individual employees who are impacted have to be party to the suit to ensure that they have standing in the court. The legal challenges will continue. And I want to make sure that you thank her for showing up and for continuing to serve her country, because our country is better because of her.
My name is Megan, and I work for HUD, and I am a remote worker. So I was supposed to start reporting to Seattle, but we are getting word that they may be closing. Do you have any updates on what's happening and what we might be able to do about this?
So I think it was Thursday before last. I was in DC getting ready to fly out to come home, and we got a frantic call from a staffer in a Senate office that said they just heard a credible rumor that the HUD office in Seattle was closing down, that some people were getting escorted out. And so we made lots of calls to try and figure out what was happening, and then heard that yes, that they had, I think, 60 days before they would be closing that office. We saw a news report yesterday that said all federal agency offices in Seattle are being targeted for closure, that their leases are being terminated. In the last oversight committee hearing I had, the Republicans scheduled a hearing of major metropolitan mayors that they were holding accountable because they have pro-immigrant policies, because they have safe, welcoming community policies, because they are ensuring that their economy is stronger by bringing more people into it, by supporting the folks who live there in their cities. But they're using that as a tool, that as an excuse, that we're too supportive of immigrants as an excuse for shutting down federal offices in cities like Seattle. I wish I had better news, but it's part of their efforts to be vindictive and vengeful against folks that disagree with them, and to make the government less efficient so they can privatize it. They want to show that our agencies don't work because they've cut people from the inside. They may not have the executive authority to dismantle an agency to eliminate an agency that was congressionally authorized, but they have the power to make it not work the way that it's supposed to, so that we think that it's not worth saving. I want to thank you for the work that you do for our community. For folks who need housing assistance, who know we are in a housing crisis, and that this is not a way that we build out of it. This is a way that we make more people homeless, that we make our communities less safe, and that frankly, will make our neighbors die. Because housing is healthcare, and folks unsheltered often have much lower life expectancies. This is life and death. These programs are life and death. Yeah, down here.
Hello, David White. What I'm concerned about is the Trump administration has probably the best disinformation campaign going. The debacle with Zelensky was just trying to save this country. That's been twisted to he did what, he didn't receive. The problem, the root cause analysis, is all these tragic stories of how real people are going to die because they can't get benefits they're willing to give their life for. How can we get this in the media? And earlier, I think bipartisanship is not going to work. The fundamental problem is the Republican Party right now. It's all about fear, hate, division, and bizarrely, some people hurt and suffer. I mean,
Thank you. So we've had a number of experts, media experts and analysts come to speak to the caucus, to committees, to groups of us, because you're right, you're absolutely right. We have to combat their information machine with our own. And when I was a state legislator, I went to a conference, Council of State Governments, and one of the foremost experts in misinformation, particularly in elections and government, is a faculty member at University of Washington. And they said, while there are some people that say we have to, have mechanisms that deny free speech to people who are lying, that doesn't seem to be the most effective way to combat misinformation, that saturating the media with the truth is one of the best ways and most trusted ways to combat misinformation. And so we've heard from experts who suggest us getting on a lot of different podcasts and outlets, because part of the challenge that we're facing is, people used to all watch the same 4 nightly news programs. That's not how people get information anymore. We have to be an expert in 75 different modes of communication so that we can reach people in all of the different decentralized ways that they're getting their information. So, the day of the joint address last Tuesday, we had creators in room. There were like Instagram influencers and content creators there, and members of Congress who were doing loops, doing interviews with everybody in that hour, because that's how so many people are getting information. It's from their Instagram feed. And we also are allowed to use what's called our franking budget, the part of the budget that members of Congress are given, though I will point out that until we pass a continuing resolution, we don't actually have a budget. It's just a stopgap measure. We're allowed to use that money to send mailers and to place ads, and so we're looking at those tools too. I have a communications director that is trying to build relationships with the media, with outlets in DC and outlets locally, because I'll say, like, not everybody who raises their hand and wants to get on Rachel Maddow is invited to be on Rachel Maddow. Not every reporter who is asked by a member of Congress will feature that member of Congress on their show. It just would that it were so. But we are looking at all the ways that we can fire hose information to constituents, and we'll keep looking, and are also having conversations in caucus about how we can be most effective, where we can be united, where we can use our joint power and messaging platform to share real information with people.
Right here.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Congresswoman Randall. Nice to see you again. Thank you for holding this. For those who don't know, I represent part of the government workers in the shipyard, the electricians, electronic workers. Business manager and president. I just want to say that we need to get educated. We need to educate people out there. And I want to ask Congressman Randall, this gentleman just spoke very eloquently what I was going to ask. Can you get that information out? Because they keep spewing that we're not working, we're not in our seats, we're not at work, we're there. And on the union side, I don't get paid overtime, but I work beyond the clock, before the clock, for the people because it's needed. So we need to get that information out. Get people that get on there, explain what we really do in those offices. We have budgetary people that make sure we get paid. OSHA makes sure that we're safe and there's safe workers there. All under the government umbrella. We're working for the people. Yes. We're not making a lot of money. We make way less than the private sector. So we need to take this out.
James makes his way around. What is your approach to addressing polarization and working across the aisle on legislation that affects our district?
Can't do it. Don't bother.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard time for that, just to be really, really honest. We can message rage and obstructionism, and we can try to change people's minds, but the same words, as I said before, don't accomplish both ends. When I would talk to Republicans in the 26th district when I represented us in the state Senate, neighbors, I would say, it's my job to show up and work for you, to try and listen to you and deliver the results that impact our community most positively. And I would ask everyone, what is the thing that is most important to you? And sometimes it would be a value that we share. Often we would be able to find some common ground. I think real people want that, right? Real people want us to be working, they want our government to be working together. But my colleagues across the aisle in Congress are far more conservative than their constituents. We see poll after poll that shows that they're more religiously extreme, that they are much more conservative on so many issues. And, that continued divide, that continued polarization makes it really hard to work together. Not just for Democrats who are trying, but for Republicans who might want to. We saw Dan Newhouse, who was one of the very few Republicans who voted for impeachment the first time, just this week introduce a censure of Al Green for speaking out. And someone who, I was looking forward to working with on issues, and there's, public utility district policy that is nonpartisan, that we should be able to work together on. Bills where we can get things done. But when it comes to protecting our fundamental rights and our freedom and voting no on a budget resolution that guts Medicaid for more red districts than blue districts, there are no Republicans with a backbone. Yeah. They don't tell me what's on their mind. But yes, I've heard reports of increased threats. I've heard, when, as I said before, the budget passed, or didn't have the votes to pass, and then all of a sudden it did. I think Musk and Trump are really leveraging every tool that they have to keep their party in line. And yes, money in politics is a way that is effective. When you have a billionaire who has enough money to buy an entire election, telling you that he will fund your primary opposition, that is a challenging place to be. And I think, there are we need 3 votes, 3 patriots to protect against some of this most dangerous policy. But I think 1, 2, or 3 is very dangerous for those 1, 2, or 3. They need cover. And they need to hear from their constituents that it is important for them to take a stand. And so I will say this again, if you know people, if you can find people, if you can connect with folks who are in districts where their member is not taking a stand, look for those ways.
Congresswoman, we have time for one last question, and then your final statement.
So I have bipolar disorder 2. I got a medication 2 years ago that gave me my life back, and it's an antipsychotic. It's the best drug on the market. And RFK Jr. has been threatening to take away antipsychotics and other mental health information and put the mentally ill back into labor camps. I've been to Fort Silicon, I've seen the graveyard there, I know what that leads to. So what are you going to do to help me?
RFK and Dr. Oz are 2 of the scariest appointees by President Trump to me. Terrifying. We talk about the misinformation that they are spreading that is deathly dangerous. This is one place where I think I'm so grateful that we live in this Washington. Because we have passed real protections at the state level for medical treatment, for insurance coverage. We've worked to modernize the prior authorization system. We have good protections in Washington state. There's still 500,000 people who are uninsured. Still, insurance and coverage is too expensive. Still, it is too hard to access care in our communities. But it's not going to be, the solution to getting RFK out of office is not fast, right? We don't have a mechanism to do that without pressure from the people and Republican votes. And so we'll just say this again, that we all have to keep up the fight and know that I am in it with you. We can keep speaking the truth about the importance of healthcare access, about what will happen when they rip our healthcare away, when they try to deauthorize, through the FDA, certain drug authorizations. And I know that Washington state legislators are continuing to look for ways that they can keep strengthening protections here. And so I'd say if there are state-specific things, to also connect with your legislators and tell them what you need them to do here in this Washington, where we do have a majority of votes, to pass those protections, to keep us safe here, so that folks who have already been coming here to find safety can keep coming here to find safety. Yeah, thank you. We are done with our questions.
We've done already next out.
We invited them. And there were media at the first town hall earlier today and at the one yesterday.
Understood.
Yeah.
Our government doesn't work the way it is now. It used to.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
$66 million in debt and asked us to pay for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing what's on your heart, for your questions, for showing up. We have to keep showing up, and I am like buoyed every time I fly back to that terrible place by the people that I work for, by neighbors like you, and knowing that our community is aligned and committed to doing what we have to do to protect our future our country, our democracy, our institutions as we know it. They're being ripped away from us, and it is with a heavy heart that I think about not giving my votes to a continuing resolution because of what that does to our neighbors, to folks who work for the federal government here in our community. But these are unprecedented times, and I will not vote for a CR.